Welcome to Studio Snack. I'm Lydia Thornley, designer, creative director and sketcher with a thing for nature.
And I'm Narciso Leda, creative director, designer and name after a flower.
Perfect for this month's episode. It's finally summer. I ought to say that really quietly. It's finally summer. So we're celebrating all things edibly floral. There are a lot of edible flowers: nasturtiums, roses, borage, pot marigolds, sunflowers, elderflowers, sage flowers, cowslips, violets, viola, flowering marjoram, edible pinks, lemon balm, bergamot, chives, amaranth, wild garlic flowers, lavender,
courgette flowers, daisies, hibiscus, tiger lilies, geraniums, peas, rocket, seeds from nettle flowers, lime tree, leaves and flowers, my favorite tea. I found a salad that has chickweed and cow parsley on it. Also, just to make sure, a little bracket here, just to make sure that whenever you're eating something foraged, just remember the first rule. If you don't know what you're picking up, just don't eat it. But I have an existential question. Are asparagus and artichoke flowers?
Well, I looked these up. Asparagus spears are edible shoots. And as I guessed when we were planning the episode, the edible bits of artichokes are the buds. And those become gorgeous thistle-like flowers. Bees love them.
Thanks for the information, Lydia. That's really interesting. I'm also thinking that when we think with flowers, we don't only have to think about the physical and the nature of flowers, but there's also like pipe roses or flowers shaped in biscuits.
And the 1970s buffet classic, the carved radish.
I can smell some nerdery coming up.
Oh yes, a garden of nerdy delights. Here goes. Saffron from the stamens of crocuses gives us the oldest recorded use by the Egyptians, then the ancient Greeks, and later the Romans. There is supposedly reference to dandelions as an ingredient in the Old Testament. It's believed that they were one of the bitter herbs. In China, there were, of course, uses for tea, and today we have jasmine tea, but amaranth, lotus flowers and orchids were also used, and I found a rice-based chrysanthemum cake.
Sounds nice.
Rose water turns out to be a byproduct of the process used to make attar of roses, the essential oil used in perfume. And researching that, I found a bit of history that mosque builders in Baghdad would mix it into the mortar along with musk so that the noonday sun would release the scent. Lovely.
That's so nice.
Culinary use looks to have started in Persia, flavouring marzipan, then picked up by the Arab Empire during the 8th to 11th centuries for drinks and savoury dishes. Then it travelled to India, gulab jamun, and of course Turkey for Turkish delight. Floral salads in the 17th century and 18th century were extraordinary things, often the centrepiece of a table. They might have cowslip buds, borage, primroses, rosemary, nasturtium, pot marigold. King James II's head gardener didn't take a salad seriously unless it had at least 35 ingredients in it.
Of course not.
Sometimes with candied buds. And candied flowers and leaves can be found in a book called, marvellously, The Whole Body of Cookery Dissected. Nice. And in another book by John Evelyn, there's writing about pickling broom buds and pods. Don't know how edible those were, but they must have been interesting times for things that you were eating.
Yeah.
But it was the Victorians with their plant hunters and their language of flowers who made crystallised flowers and candied leaves really fashionable. And there were recipes for cakes and syrups flavoured with scented geraniums.
I'd like to try that.
Yeah, it does sound good. And for a while, they went out of fashion for a variety of reasons. But more recently, they were brought back by creative chefs, including Farron Adria. And the herb grower Jekka McVicker wrote a book, Cooking with Flowers. The story of Parma Violet sweets, though, is wonderful.
Oh, taste of childhood.
Indeed it is. They were invented in 1946 by Derbyshire company Swizzles, originally as a breath freshener, and they were frequently sold in pubs. They were based on the aniseed confectionery traditionally eaten in India after a spicy meal, and you can still find them now in Indian restaurants. Last year, Swizzles teamed up with the Cheshire Cheese Company to make limited edition Parma Violet cheese.
Yuck.
Looks amazing. Not sure I'd want to try it, or maybe I would.
No.
Because we've often talked about the weird English thing of words sounding the same but meaning different things, I was interested in flower as in the plant and flower the ingredient, whether there was a relationship between those, and I didn't expect to find them, but it is there. Who knew that the word flower derives from the French fleur, meaning blossom, and used for the finest from fleur de farine? The English word was actually spelt flower, Flower, until the modern spelling became the accepted norm.
I love this. I think we should do an experiment.
We should. Narcissus, you've been animating, haven't you?
Yes, I really love this idea of flower and flower, as in that sound the same. So I animated fleur because it worked a little bit better with flower. With After Effects, it became a little bit more elegant than when I tried my second experiment with AI, which I'm starting to think that I'm gonna start calling it AD, Artificial Dummy, because I managed to create very strange videos with it. My favorite one was when I prompted a packet of flour, the ingredient, pouring flowers, the plant, and it created a packet of flour, the plant, pouring flour as the ingredient.
This is going to be really interesting when we start writing the alt tags for our Instagram.
Yes.
I started with edible flowers often being used because they bring colour to a dish. So I put that together with the live sketching I do in my garden, where I often find that colours in nature are a lot more complicated than you expect them to be when you just sit with a plant and look at it through drawing. And I've done some tiny watercolour sketches of flowers harvested for the kitchen, and alongside them made samples of the colours I've used. And then in acrylics, I've gone a step further, making a sort of swatch of rose petals and a flower of petals from different roses to show how varied they are. Then I made a swatch from paper from old paper swatches and a metal post binder to show different colours and different shapes and sizes of rose petals.
We'll put all this on our social media just so you can have a look.
So what does this tell us for our design practice, Narcissus?
I think a couple of things for me. The first one is that these experiments usually become a little bit basic, or sometimes they're unsuccessful, or sometimes they just and not in your case, because usually I love your results. But for me, the experiment becomes like the journey. In this one, I discovered that I really love doing animation and that I should actually brush up on my animation skills, because I sort of abandoned it. I really want to get back into After Effects. The other thing that I discovered is how many flowers we can eat. And usually we think flowers as a decoration, but I also discovered that flowers, they have some sort of properties as well. They have vitamins, they have minerals, they have phosphorus, iron, potassium.
That's really interesting, and I think your point about the journey is so true. It's often in that voyage of discovery that you come up with the idea that's going to work, rather than the obvious idea. I think what we do is so often thought of as doing, but it's the thinking part of it that pulls out the real gems of ideas and distills the story that we're trying to tell.
Yeah.
And my experiment reminded me that I always look into why we do things and how design or illustration might help people look at something in a different way. Interestingly, it was just playing with the rose petals that gave me the second set of images. And then a quick idea and mucking about with paper gave me the physical swatch and an insight that flat colour is useful in design, but it's a massive simplification of the colours that you find in nature. And I also think that hanging on to that childlike ability to mess about with things and see what happens is of serious value.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this playing around and then getting other ideas from the first ideas is actually quite interesting. And in the creative process usually happens that you get an idea for a certain project and a second idea for the next project, or for something else that you're working on site.
And I think that's why it's so good to have enough time to work on a design project. Yes, we can rush it, but if you have enough time, you can develop it properly. You can find all of these side ideas that are of real use and real value.
Yes, I love this.
But onward to edible flowers. I have brought you some sage from my garden which has flowers on it. I had to ask the bees nicely first before I took some away.
They smell lovely.
Join us next month for another studio snack.
But I have an existential, I was going to say an existential crisis.
It's Friday, it's the day for existential crises.
But but